Live from the TV30 studio, here is Jim Schneider.
Well, good evening and welcome to inFocus. So glad that you could join us for our broadcast today. And some of you have contacted us saying, hey, something's different about inFocus. You're not taking phone calls and it's been a kind of an inconsistent schedule. Well, friends, we're involved in moving our TV studios at this point. We've been in a state of transition. And that transition is soon coming to an end, and we're looking forward to our first live inFocus program coming up on Monday, March the 3rd in the new studios. And so we would encourage you to continue to stay tuned in and be waiting for that broadcast from our new facilities coming up in the month of March. And of course, new technology coming your way as well that will enhance even this inFocus program. So thank you for bearing with us during this time. Would like to also just mention a special event that we've got coming up at WVCY is specifically, it's our March rally at the Waukesha Expo. It'll be held on Saturday, March 15th at 6 p.m. We're looking forward to having astronaut Charlie Duke with us, and it's very interesting because there have been only 12 men that have walked on the moon, and only 4 of these men are still alive today. Charlie Duke was the youngest astronaut to walk on the moon. He was not only engaged back at the mission in Apollo 11, but he also actually walked on the moon with Apollo 16. When he was on the moon, he did not know Jesus Christ as a Savior, but it was events that happened after his time there that brought him to faith in Christ. Charlie Duke is coming to express his testimony. Certainly we're going to see some moon-related issues as well. He'll be talking about that moon landing and all of that coming together at our VCY rally. It's March 15th at the Waukesha Expo. Admission is free, and you're invited to come be a part of this. It will start at 6 o'clock. Doors will open at 5 p.m. So plan to be with us for this rally. Also that night, Voices of Truth will be singing a package of sacred music. They are a group from Baptist College of Ministry, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, and we're looking forward to their being with us. Let me also just mention that as you're watching this program on Monday evening, tomorrow is our spring primary election. We've been waiting for this date for some time, February 18th, and for each of us who live in the state of Wisconsin, there is a matter on the ballot. Every location, every household address has an item on their ballot, and you are invited and really encouraged to be participating in the voting process. You may have some local municipal races on your ballot. Some may be voting on aldermen or other school board related issues, but everyone will have the office of State Superintendent of Public Instruction. There are 3 individuals who are on this ballot, and this election will narrow that field of candidates down to just 2 candidates for the April general election. But on this are Jill Underly. She is the incumbent. She is being backed by the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. She has received monies from the Democratic Party of Wisconsin for another term in that office. She's being challenged by Jeff Wright. He is the Sauk Prairie School District Superintendent. He is being backed by the Teachers Union WEAC, and he is running for this seat. And then the third individual is Brittany Kinzer. She's a Wauwatosa educational specialist, and she calls herself a moderate, but she is being backed by conservatives because of her pro-school choice positions. And in fact, she has received monies from the Republican Party of Wisconsin as well. So these are the 3 candidates that are on everybody's ballot in Tuesday's election. A reminder that polls open at 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll be open until 8 o'clock in the evening. And we just encourage you to know the candidates, their positions, their issues. Do a search on websites, and you'll get their actual websites regarding their campaign and find out what they're campaigning on. But by all means, to be involved in the voting process. Again, polls open 7 o'clock in the morning, open until 8 o'clock this evening, and this will narrow the field of candidates for the April 1st general election. Already you're seeing ads on television, hearing them on radio, seeing other pop-ups on your computer screen for the Attorney General, for the Supreme Court Justice here in the state of Wisconsin. This is a very, very critical race coming up on April 1st. So do not tune out, do not hit the snooze button, be engaged and know what's on the ballot. We'll continue to keep you informed here on the inFocus program, so we hope you'll stay tuned with us. Now, friends, tonight we have a number of video clips we're going to be sharing with you on the program to give you a sense of what's happening in our country. You know, ever since the debate happened this past June between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the country as a whole, now many people knew this, but the country as a whole became aware of the matter of the mental acuity of Joe Biden at that time. And many began questioning his mental fitness to actually run for another term of president and to be president for 4 years. And as a result of this, you know, we saw him oftentimes calling it a day by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Many days, very light schedules he was holding. Analysts indicate that at least 25% of his schedule was on vacation time. And his mental sharpness, though, was gone. And so the question was coming about, who is running this country? Who is making the decisions? Who is there knowing what's going on after 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And it was very interesting because that question of who is running the country was answered by Lindy Lee. She was a Democratic operative, but she turned into a MAGA supporter, and she has been on a media tour and recently was interviewed by Sean Ryan, and she is filling in the blank on some of these questions, and she indicated the person that was really running the show was Hunter Biden. Let's watch what she had to say.
After the debate, Hunter basically commandeered the White House. He sat in on all the White House top-level meetings. You had a former cocaine addict sitting in on the most sensitive meetings of the most consequential and important government in world history. Does that sit right with you?
No.
Without security clearance, mind you, no security clearance. That's who was basically running the show. So Hunter basically battened down the hatches after the debate to make sure that his father would only receive intel that he pre-approved.
Well, that was Lindy Lee, again, a Democratic operative, now a MAGA supporter, but revealing information that she had to share. And if you watch that whole interview, she talks about a number of those really part of the deep state that were operating the White House and making the decisions and guarded what information President Biden was even told. And so very interesting indeed. But a change has taken place in this country, as 4 weeks ago today, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. And friends, it's like been on a grease skid. I mean, lightning speed, the many, many actions that have been taken by this administration. It's been said that in his first term in office, back when he was President 45, that he had signed 33 executive orders in his first 100 days. Now, just in 3 weeks, he has signed 59 executive orders or executive actions. And so things are happening very quickly. He's been down this road before, and as a result, he knows what to expect, who to trust, and who to put in charge of various things. But it's not just one facet of the government that he is getting engaged with. It is just every facet of the government is involved, every agency, and he's at the forefront of this. Well, CBN has documented the speed at what has been transpiring and why it's happening the way it is. And so let's go to CBN right now and catch that clip as they explain further on this very matter.
In other news, when a president takes office, talk usually centers on the first 100 days. In Donald Trump's case, it has been fast and furious since day one. Here's CBN's David Brody.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, the flurry of activity began and has not slowed down. What a difference. In Trump's first term, he signed 33 executive orders during his first 100 days. Now, in less than a month, he signed 59 as of the beginning of this week. It'll go up from here. Corey Lewandowski served as Trump's 2016 campaign manager.
And the luxury of a second term is you don't have to run for re-election. You can just go in all in with your ideas.
The president also has more momentum this time around. In 2016, his victory came as a bit of a shock. By winning the popular vote in 2024, he now has more of a mandate. 8 years ago, only 49% approved of his inaugural address. This time, that jumped to 62%. He also has a more supportive GOP in Congress that is wary of crossing him. Case in point, certain cabinet choices labeled controversial are making their way through the confirmation process. And then there's this difference. Those closest to him this time around are completely different.
The big difference, David, is surrounding himself with people who actually have the same philosophy this time, unlike in Trump 1.0, who look good but should never have been there.
So gone are establishment types like former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Defense Secretary General James Mattis, and Chief of Staff John Kelly. Replacing them are loyalists, disruptors, and friends like very disciplined new Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. Joining her are like-minded cabinet members such as Attorney General Pam Bondi, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Head of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, just to name a few. A much more organized operation planned over the last 4 years. Tony Kinnett is with the Daily Signal.
There's nothing that bothers him at this point. There's nothing that he's worried about as far as electability. He's not looking towards things that he thinks are going to be that hampered him in his first administration. He spent the last 2 years, I know, working through every single detailed plan with those that he was looking to bring into this next administration. 2 years, you can get a lot of planning done.
Candidly, David, if we would have had 8 years in a row, we wouldn't have been as successful as we're going to be with the 4-year break in between, because we had the chance to plot.
The biggest difference so far is the speed in delivering on campaign priorities, such as targeting the federal bureaucracy. In his first term, the executive order making it easier to fire certain federal employees didn't happen until just before the 2020 election. This time, however, that order came on day one, and it had a much broader scope. From deportations to tariffs to banning men and women's sports, he seems more results-oriented and faster. Some say this focus could be due to surviving an assassin's bullet. It has clearly affected his outlook.
I think it did. I also think the weight of the office is different when you've been in it and you've left and you've come back to it. What he is embarking on for the next 4 years will fundamentally, historically, and profoundly change this country forever.
That is certainly Trump's goal, and unless Congress or the courts get in his way, it could happen with lightning speed.
All right, he's our CBN News chief political analyst, David Brody. He joins us now. David, yesterday the president signed an executive order downsizing the federal workforce and limiting new hires, and he's come under fire for moving too aggressively to cut government spending. How does the administration respond to all this criticism?
They say they have the people's backing. I mean, it's just that simple. They go to the word mandate. As a matter of fact, it's something Elon Musk talked about inside the Oval Office with President Trump yesterday in front of reporters. Here's Elon Musk. Take a look.
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform.
So, Andrew, the bottom line and the crux of the issue here is that you have unelected bureaucrats, what Elon Musk calls the fourth branch of government, running things. And everybody says, well, how are they running things? Well, Congress appropriates the money, but the civil servants carry it out because the mandate for that money is very vague. And that's why the chief executive, President Trump, is coming in, tasking Elon Musk with going through all of this, and also from an efficiency standpoint. And that's kind of the crux of what's happening.
It is such a different administration from the first time. There's Elon Musk, little boy on the floor. He's wearing a winter coat and a baseball hat in the White House. It's so different. So far, most of these changes have come by executive orders, as your piece talked about. So how difficult is it going to be when it comes to working with Congress to actually pass a legislative agenda?
Well, it's a great question because, look, a lot of folks in MAGA are like, wow, we're in the candy store. Look at things going on left and right, actually mostly right. But they're loving it for now. But you're right. Executive orders will transpire or will, end at the end of 4 years. So then the question is, what is Congress going to actually codify into law? That is much more difficult. The answer, though, Andrew, is that budget reconciliation bill we hear about. So what does that really mean in kind of layman's terms? It's a hodgepodge of about everything. So whether it be energy, whether it be immigration, those type of issues specifically, they're going to try, the administration is going to try to codify into law some of these executive orders within the budget reconciliation process. And also remember, as it relates to no men and women's sports, there is already House legislation that has passed. We're waiting for the Senate to take that bill up any week or day now. So that could be codified into law. So there's certain parts of this that will go forward.
What do you think of the lightning speed of all he's done? If you're a Democrat serving in office or just someone who didn't vote for President Trump, and you see all these initiatives, and then you hear he's, talking about paper straws and pennies and the Gulf of America. He is everywhere and talking about everything. How are they reacting to the speed at which he is moving things?
Well, it's a great question. It's just the way, of course, Trump likes it. The Democrats are in a pickle, as my dad would say back in the day, because they don't control any of the levers of power of government right now. But beyond all of that, they're going after Trump and Musk, and they're making it personal. And that just hasn't worked. It didn't work in 2024. Trump is back in the White House. And the part of the problem here is that you basically have an untenable position if you're a Democrat. You're basically saying, yeah, keep the government waste going. Don't worry about efficiency. We want business as usual. The American people don't want business as usual. Now, Trump is taking it to extremes, but the bottom line is that's what the people want. And Democrats are making this personal against Trump and Musk, and I'm not quite sure if that's the winning ticket.
One more question. You alluded to it in your story. He survived that assassination attempt by couple of inches, right, at most. Do you think that plays a significant role, not just the 2 years of planning, for an administration, but did that survival, the attempt on his life, play a pivotal role in the speed and boldness in which he's moving now?
I think it's two things. I think, one, it's the assassination attempt, and two, they had 4 years to literally, I'll use this word, kind of plot strategy, if you will. I mean, this is a well-oiled machine, Andrew, as you know, and a lot of people are going to say it's haphazard, it's been wild. They have a plan. They've had a plan since day one. They've been plotting what they're going to do, day 1, day 2, day 18, day 43. They know what they want to do. And now executive orders at the White House have been commonplace. It's like 3 p.m. Eastern every time there's executive orders. It's like story time in America. It's just been wild.
All right, David, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Andrew.
And that clip coming from CBN, and certainly we're seeing the speed at which Donald Trump is just getting engaged in every facet of government. The system is broken, and seeking to right the ship at a time when we're sinking into debt and much taking place. Well, one of the very controversial individuals he has working with him is Elon Musk. Now, not too long ago, Elon Musk was a darling of the Democratic left, and since he and Donald Trump have had a relationship that's been a working relationship on government efficiency and so forth, we see that Donald Trump has put him in charge of this DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, to look at all aspects of government. Where are we abusing money here as a country? Where are we, just putting money into a sinking ship? And so there has been much that has come about, and in just a few minutes here, we're going to be providing you some examples of some of the matters that have been going on. But this past week, President Donald Trump had a press conference in the Oval Office, and Elon Musk was there, and Elon's son X was there as well. And right now we're going to go back to videotape and take you to the Oval Office. We don't have time to share the entire press conference that unfolded, but we're going to give you just a few snippets from that. You'll hear a couple questions from the press as well. And to talk about, you're going to hear from Elon Musk and this Department of Government Efficiency. So let's go to that Oval Office video right now.
And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's DOGE, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and also could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right,
etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, if you look at, say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of the expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately.
Your detractors, Mr. Musk,
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. the public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, but in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And that's what democracy is all about.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization. So, and the kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract for some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts, when it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president, I know, has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, that seems like maybe that's, that there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself?
Yes. But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, because nobody ends a contract. You get a lot of that.
So that was Elon Musk and Donald Trump there in the Oval Office of the White House, and their meeting went on for some time. They took other questions. This just gives you a snapshot of some of the matters that took place there this past week. But friends, we could spend the next hours talking about the waste that has been going on and what your tax dollars have been paying for here in our country. Just looking at a few articles here from LifeSiteNews.com, the U.S. Department of Justice directed more than $100 million toward left-wing diversity, equity, and inclusion, restorative justice, and social emotional learning programs. This happened during the Biden presidency. Parental rights watchdog watchdog group Parents Defending Education has found 100 school districts. They have this on their website with 102 school districts getting grants, 946 different K through 12 schools across 36 states, all promoting left-wing ideas on matters like race, justice, social justice, sexuality as well. So that's part of where your tax dollars have been going. Also, an article that came to us from the Daily Signal, millions for DEI and climate. And they found abuse going on. A source inside the White House points again to this diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate change as well. Critical race theory, that's the idea that America is systemically racist against black people, and racial preferences for minorities are essential to correct historic injustices. And they say, that DEI, the Trump administration says that DEI violates really civil rights by judging people on the basis of their skin color. The documents include a $36,126 contract from the U.S. Citizen Immigration Services for diversity, equity, and inclusion for leadership. Also, that $2.86 million for a public relations firm contract for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, again for inclusive purposes. Another contract with the U.S. Forest Service, $35,338.58 for Sri Lanka Climate Change Mitigation, Adaptation and Resilience Coordination Services. Another contract revealed that the Department of Labor paid $4.1 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility consultation for the Job Corps. And then townhall.com also had just a litany of things. And this is according to congressional committee findings. A committee of the U.S. Congress started doing digging. Here's what they revealed. $11.75 million for measuring effectiveness of DEI promotion efforts in Nepal. Friends, we are taking this agenda. We have taken this agenda all over the world. $750,000 on Princeton University's DEI survey in the Middle East. $859,000 on hiring a DEI specialist at USAID's headquarters in Washington. $23,000 on hosting DEI recruitment seminars in places like Lima, Peru. They also talk about $1 million hiring an LGBT advisor for USAID's U.S. Personnel Services Contractor Program. $15,500 on a DEI staff retreat in Nigeria. Another $100,000 to conduct a DEI survey in Ghana. Yeah, this is your tax dollars, folks, and this is being uncovered right now by Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. $50,000 on the establishment of a DEI fellowship in Uzbekistan. $30,280 on DEI facilitated conversations in Senegal. That's in West Africa. $5.5 million to improve the lives of LGBT individuals in Uganda. $37.67 million for providing services to prostitutes, their clients, and transgender identifying people. $65.7 million on vasectomies in the Congo. $6 million on the social inclusion of LGBTQ plus people in countries around the world. $4.3 million to provide services for men who have sex with other men in South Africa. $14.9 million to enhance the leadership of LGBT leaders in Cambodia. $3.5 million for empowering LGBT Colombians to take part in the political process. $1.3 million to create a comfortable environment for LGBTQ people in North Macedonia. $3.9 million to strengthen equity and democracy for LGBTQ plus population in the Western Balkans. I'll just share a couple more with you. Or $18,800 to help LGBT individuals vote in the 2021 Honduras election. Your monies have been spent for programs just like these. Also, we just exposed on February 13th, Pamela Geller told us that the USAID paid $3 million to a Gaza rapper to create Jew-hating music. And then just testified this past week, Haywood Talcove, he's CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and described to lawmakers the different kinds of criminals exploiting U.S. government benefit systems, pointing out that COVID relief provided a windfall of over $1 trillion to criminal elements. Friends, this is why we need to have this dust-up taking place across this country. This is why we need to have this exposed. And the left is angry at this. It's like you lift up, a rock and you see the roaches all scattering everywhere because these programs are being exposed. They had monies that were going in to fund programs that were akin to George Soros and his foundation. And friends, it's time that we put a stop to this. And certainly this is being exposed right now. Lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers are angry at this. And the thing that's troubling in all of this is that there are also threats that are coming now against Elon Musk, violence perpetrated against him. I want you to see this as we have a legislator pointing this matter out.
So we're at 400 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, and this is what we see in a government advertising box. We don't know if the government allowed this or an individual, but targeting individuals, hopefully only using USAID's logo. It better not be funded by them or endorsed by them. The president is asking serious questions about where taxpayer dollars are going and whether or not it's the best and highest use. I, for one, think that Elon Musk and President Trump are doing right by the American taxpayers asking those questions. This is what's wrong with the process.
Well, as you saw, the political left is angry, and now threats against Elon Musk. Again, he was once their friend, and now their barrels are turned against him big time, and many are very upset and calling for his removal. Certainly, we've seen the courts get involved and putting the brakes on some of this pulling back of funding and firing, terminating staff or putting people on layoff notices. And friends, there is much corruption, and this is something, again, when we look at our national debt, the trillions of dollars, friends, the pathway we're on is not sustainable. And so they're finding corruption. They're finding these expenditures that have gone out of the treasuries, and it's time to put the brakes on it. Well, it's not only this, but as I said, there's a multi-pronged approach that's being taken by President Trump, and one of the areas that he campaigned on was our borders, shoring up the borders and to stop aliens who are entering this country illegally from having access into the country. You saw where he was all of a sudden putting in tariffs against Canada and Mexico as a result of the porous borders and fentanyl coming into the state and other things as well, the human trafficking that is taking place. And President Trump putting a stop to that aspect. It's been a different day at the border since he took office. And now we have the Canadian government and the Mexican government who have put extra troops at their borders, shoring things up in that regard. But the major issue here has been criminal aliens in our country. Now, everyone who breaks the law entering the country illegally, that's a criminal action. But there are those who have put action upon action on top of that and committing some very horrendous crimes in our nation. And President Trump he campaigned about having the largest deportation in the history of our nation. He has had many flights going back to countries of origin, taking those who are here illegally. He has opened up part of Gitmo for putting those from violent Venezuelan gangs there because they're so severely violent that felt that was the best place for them to be at this times. But it just, pales my belief to understand that there have been agencies and government officials and even the media that have leaked where some of these raids would take place from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the ICE agents, and that has been taking place. President Trump has named Tom Homan as the border czar. And recently, Sean Hannity interviewed Tom Homan as it relates to these leaks that are taking place. Just a brief snippet from that interview, and you'll hear what Tom Homan had to say.
Border czar, Tom Homan. Tom, where are these leaks coming from?
Well, look, we think it's coming from inside. And we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person under investigation right now. The California leak, Secretary Noem, she's correct. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI. But I talked to the Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they're going to go to jail. They're going to criminally prosecute. So we're all over it. We got the DHS IG investigating the first one. Have a pretty good idea what happened. Can't share a lot because it's under investigation, but the IG's opened up a criminal investigation on the second one. We're sending a strong message. It's just not, giving the bad guys a heads up so they can escape apprehension. Right? We're arresting, giving, the Venezuela gang a heads up so we can't arrest them. You're putting officers' lives at risk. It's only a matter of time if we walk into a place where there's going to be a bad guy doesn't care. He's going to be sitting in wait for the officers to show up and ambush them. This is not a game. So DHS and DOJ are connected at hip to hold these people responsible in a criminal fashion.
So early indications are this is coming from our own FBI. How certain are you of that?
Information leading to that. Again, I'll let the Department of Justice do their own investigation. But again, I talked to the Deputy Attorney General this week, and they've opened up a criminal investigation. He thinks the information is coming from there also, so we'll let that investigation play out. But some of the leads point that way.
Well, Border Czar Tom Homan speaking to these issues of these leaks that are taking place. And not only is he getting grief from Democratic operatives or leaks from within, from those who are part of the deep state, want to stop the Trump agenda from going forward, but he's also received some opposition from all people, the Pope. And he is, in essence, calling out the Pope as being a hypocrite. Listen to what Tom Homan had to say.
The Pope this morning had some very harsh words for the...
I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope want to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was First Communion as a Catholic, Confirmation as a Catholic. He ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us from securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
So here he is calling out the Pope for his hypocrisy. Yes, walls around the Vatican, just don't have walls or borders around a country. Wow. Well, there is also another office that's getting engaged with this, and this is the U.S. Attorney General. Pam Bondi recently confirmed to this position, and she is not going to take matters lying down. I mean, she is fully engaged in this, and she also took to the media as it relates to addressing the leaks, especially coming from the FBI. Here's what she had to say.
Tom Homan suggested this week that someone from within the FBI may be leaking information about the ICE raids and that such could be putting officers' lives at risk. Has the DOJ gotten any closer to determining if these leaks are coming from within the FBI? And what will the consequences be if they can identify the leakers from the FBI?
Excuse me. Well, first, I can't talk about anything that is ongoing, and that is ongoing. And it's really for the similar reasons of what I said earlier. The great men and women in law enforcement standing behind me today, they must be protected. And anytime anyone leaks or tips off anything regarding a pending investigation, that jeopardizes lives. You're telling a bad guy what's about to happen. It could jeopardize the lives of all the men and women in law enforcement. We will not stand for it. We will find you. We're going to investigate it, no matter what agency it came from. We don't know for certain. We have an open investigation, so I can't talk about it in detail, but we will do everything in our power to hold you accountable, and it is a crime. And you will be prosecuted when we find you.
Yes, Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, is vowing to prosecute FBI agents and government officials who are leaking information as it relates to these ICE raids. Again, friends, this puts the lives of law enforcement officers at risk. How could internal people do this? I mean, it just is so appalling that this would be taking place in our government, but it's deep state, and they're trying to thwart the program of Donald Trump. What about the safety and security of the nation? They don't care about those things. And so Pam Bondi certainly wants to get a hold of this. There are also states that are bucking the president's orders. States like New York, states like California, and trying to be sanctuary. And even though there are hardened criminals, again, everybody who comes in this country illegally is committing a criminal act. But there are those who are taking an extra step. And you've got states like New York that are shielding and protecting and not cooperating with ICE agents, those who have done very atrocious things in our country. So Attorney General Pam Bondi, she is going after New York, just as she says here.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
To me, it's also appalling to see congressmen and women that are getting engaged and getting out information on how to protect those who are here illegally, even over citizens who are rightly here, even legal immigrants who are rightly here. For instance, Congresswoman Gwen Moore. She puts out an email here just in early February saying, I understand many of my constituents are worried about Trump's deportation efforts and its potential impact on residents in Milwaukee. If you're in a situation with ICE, it's important to remember that you do have rights. So she tells people what to do if you're approached by ICE agents or the police, and if ICE agents come to your house, and if you are arrested or detained, here's what you can do, and call our office here. We're here to help you. Yes, even Congresswoman Gwen Moore, representing this congressional district here, including the city of Milwaukee, seeking to give extra protections to those who are here illegally. Well, as I mentioned, President Trump is engaged in every aspect of government. Lee Zeldin, who is the new EPA administrator, there was undercover video released recently of an individual in the Biden administration that was talking about tossing gold bars off the Titanic. In other words, getting rid of lots of money before Donald Trump took office. And we got to quickly get these dollars spent. And Lee Zeldin from the EPA is addressing that issue. Listen to what he had to say.
Hi, this is EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. One of my very top priorities at EPA is to be an excellent steward of your hard-earned tax dollars. There will be zero tolerance of any waste and abuse. An extremely disturbing video circulated 2 months ago featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, rushing to get billions of your tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. The gold bars were tax dollars, and tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting it. Following this revelation, during my meetings with members of Congress, I made a very important commitment to them and to the American people, which I reiterated at my confirmation hearing that if confirmed, I would immediately get a full accounting. Fortunately, my awesome team at EPA has found the gold bars. Shockingly, roughly $20 billion of your tax dollars were parked at an outside financial institution by the Biden EPA. This scheme was the first of its kind in EPA history, and it was purposefully designed to obligate all of the money in a rush job with reduced oversight. Even further, this pot of $20 billion was awarded to just 8 entities that were then responsible for doling out your money to NGOs and others at their discretion with far less transparency. Just under $7 billion was sent to one entity called the Climate United Fund. I'm sure you and I now have some of the same questions. How do these organizations decide how to allocate funding? How much money have they given out so far and to whom? Are there any former Biden EPA staffers who are now working at these entities? Let me make one thing abundantly clear. At this point, there is zero reason to suspect any wrongdoing by the bank. Here's my position as EPA administrator. The financial agent agreement with the bank needs to be instantly terminated, and the bank must immediately return all of the gold bars that the Biden administration tossed off the Titanic. EPA needs to reassume responsibility for all of these funds. We will review every penny that has gone out the door. I will be referring this matter to the Inspector General's office, and will work with the Justice Department as well. The days of irresponsibly shoveling boatloads of cash to The far-left activist groups in the name of environmental justice and climate equity are over. The American public deserves a more transparent and accountable government than what transpired these past 4 years. We take our obligations under the law as seriously as it gets. I've directed my team to find your gold bars, and they found them. Now we will get them back inside of control of government as we pursue next steps. As President Trump has vowed, we are going to usher in a new golden age of American success for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
Well, so they've found the gold bars, he said, and they are working about to reclaim those gold bars and put monies back into the pockets of taxpayers here across this nation. Yet another focus of the Trump administration has been that of Israel. Earlier this week, Hamas had released hostages, and certainly the evidence was there of how they are malnourished, and President Trump said they look like Holocaust survivors, and he has demanded that Hamas release all hostages by this past Saturday at noon. And Hamas said, well, we'll release a few of the hostages, and that story is not finished being told as of this point, all that's going to befall there. But I want you to hear some comments that President Trump made as he was aboard Air Force One concerning this matter of Israel.
Hamas has been a disaster. And by the way, I have to tell you that I watched the hostages come back today, and they look like Holocaust survivors. They were in horrible condition. They were emaciated. It looked like many years ago, the Holocaust survivors. And I don't know how much longer we can take that when I watch that. I know we have a deal where we're supposed to get, they dribble in and keep dribbling in, but they are in really bad shape. They have been treated brutally, horribly. Even the ones that came out earlier, they were in a little bit better shape, but mentally they were treated so badly. Who could take that? At some point, we're going to lose our patience. When I see that scene that I saw today with people coming out of helicopters and airplanes that are emaciated, that look like they haven't had a meal in a month, no reason for that, and I don't know how much longer we can take it.
Do you want to recast?
I don't know how long we can take it. When I watch people that were healthy people a reasonably short number of years ago, and you look at them today, they look like they've aged 25 years. They literally look like the old pictures of Holocaust survivors. The same thing. I mean, the same thing. And I don't know how long we're going to take that.
You're watching the program In Focus here on WVCY Channel 30, and we thank you for joining us. But friends, I've got one more clip I would like to play for you here this evening on the program. So often we look at all the matters that are happening and we say, oh, we've got a big political problem in this country. And, friends, frankly, we do. But there's a problem that is far greater than those political issues that we've talked about this evening, and that is a spiritual problem that's impacting this nation, a nation that's void of God and following biblical truth. I'm just going to give you one example. You see, at the time of the inauguration, there was a special service that was held. President Trump was there, J.D. Vance was there, their wives were there, and there was the very liberal Episcopal bishop. Her name was Mary Ann Budd, who scolded them and was pushing this whole matter of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really took that service into an area of politics, pushing the LGBT agenda, clearly turning her back on the scriptures. And now she was just recently on Face the Nation and making a case claiming that even Jesus would support abortion, promoting an abortion agenda. Let's listen to what she had to say.
Well, let's be specific. I love the spectrum of life. I think you can be an adherent of the spectrum of life and still respect a woman's right to choose her in reproductive health, and including when to have an abortion in the early stages of pregnancy. So I'll just say that as a Christian, I believe that that's possible, and still hold to the full spectrum of life. I think it's fascinating that those who are that in this Christian spectrum, that to be consistent would have some very significant things to say about the way we treat our children, the way we face poverty in this country, the way we treat people when they're imprisoned, the way we treat people at the end of life, whether or not we feel that the state can take life, all of those issues, which I think Bernardine was very consistent about, where I might respectfully say there are other perspectives in the Christian world, is that we might have some very interesting conversations about what to do in what is best for a woman in the early stages of pregnancy, or the issues that face women at that very tender time in life.
Yes, friends, we have a spiritual problem. We need revival across this land. Yep, she represents a very liberal denomination, but it's a denomination like many others that have forsook the authority of God's word. And if we want to prosper as a nation, we need to get back to the authority of God's word. So often we're asking the question, just like the serpent in the garden, yea, hath God said? Instead, we should be saying, thus saith the Lord. We're off track as a nation, and we must get back on spiritual track. If we want the political problems to be fixed in our land, we have to recognize the need to change the heart of man. It's a spiritual issue. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? That's what the prophet Jeremiah wrote. So it's important we get back to the things of the Lord. And so tonight, as we close off the inFocus program, I just want to encourage you to be praying for President Trump, be praying for those within his administration, be praying for your congressmen and senators, whether they have an R behind their name or a D behind the name. Be praying for your governor here in the state of Wisconsin. Be praying for your legislative leaders. We're in some critical times here across our nation. And it is really important that we spend that time in meaningful prayer, and that we don't just play the game, that we ourselves as individuals recognize the importance of our being salt and light in this world. We are ambassadors of Jesus Christ. We need to go forth in that regard. We want to thank you for joining us here on TV 30's inFocus. Just a reminder, Tuesday is Election Day. Polls open at 7 in the morning. They'll stay open until 8 o'clock in the evening. This will narrow the field of candidates down to the April general election. To find out what's on your ballot, go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. Click on What's on My Ballot, and that'll give you information for the election. Good night. May God richly bless you. Thanks for joining us.